Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to sketch and paint this onion using the Derwent Line and Wash paint pan set and pens. And if you would like a real-time version of this tutorial, you can find it up now in Critique Club over at lindsayweirich.teachable.com. I was cleaning out the fridge about a week ago and I found this onion had sprouted in the produce crisper. And so I took it out and I plopped it in a little cup of water, and then the shoots got bright green and they grew really quickly, and I thought this would be really interesting to draw. I loved the papery texture of the onion skin and how it was kind of like dented and like shrunken, and I like the really bright green shoots and the little sheaths of like membrane that goes around them. So I thought this would be just a fun thing to draw. I'm jumping right in with my pens here, and this kit comes with a 0.3 and a 0.8 pen, and I'm using the 0.8 because I'm using rough watercolor paper, or it's actually Arches Cold Press, which is quite rough in my sketchbook. And I find that with a thicker nibbed pen, fine liner, I can use the edge of it and I get a finer line, and it also doesn't wear down the pens quite so easily, because the rough watercolor paper is almost like using a sandpaper on these pens sometimes. So I want to make sure they last the longest. So I'm doing the majority of my sketching with that. If you wanted to use a pencil first to do your drawing, then you can, and then ink over it, and then you can go and erase your pencil lines at the end. Now in Critique Club, I took 6 different reference photos of this onion turned at different directions, so you can choose the one that you like. Otherwise, I'm just leaving the onion right on camera as I'm sketching here, and in the tutorial, that onion will be right on camera. But I do give options in Critique Club if that's something you're interested in. You do want to be a little more careful than I was with the inking section, because I did have some of my lines go a little too long and intercept other areas, like on one of that big stalk in the middle. I've got some of the ends kind of overlapping that, but by the time we have it all painted and whatnot, it really doesn't show. But if you're using like a traditional watercolor versus the Derwent Line and Wash set, probably those lines are going to show a little bit more. The Line and Wash set has some Inktense pan paints, it's got some pastel pan paints, it's got some Graphitint. It's, so it's a combination. So some colors are more transparent than others, but they're not quite as transparent as a traditional watercolor would be. And so if you're going to use your regular watercolors, you may want to be a little more careful with your inking, but it's going to be pretty no matter what you use. I just got this Line and Wash set, so I was kind of excited to give it a try. So here I'm going in and adding a little bit of hatching for shading on my sketch. You can do as much or as little of this as you want, and you can switch to the smaller nibbed pen if you want to at this point. Once you've got the big, I feel like the big lines out of the way, you can do that. Now I had a little splash of gouache on my page. I decided to try to scrub that out right now before I began painting, and it worked really well. So that's a great thing about gouache. It does lift up pretty well. And in your sketchbook, sometimes you spill some on the opposite page when you're working on one page. Now I am going to do the shadow here, and I'm trying to mix a nice cool gray color. So I ended up using the Payne's Gray with a little bit of the Autumn Brown to get my cool gray. The first one I tried was the, what did I use? I think I used the Payne's Gray with some red, and it was just too purpley. This does have like a hint of purple to it because the Autumn Brown has a bit of a red, but I like that color, and the Graphitint granulates a little bit, which makes the shadows really interesting. Now because I have 4 lights pointed at my filming area desk, I do get several shadows if you're looking at the onion there, but I'm just going with the majority, like the kind of the main shadow, just to simplify it a little bit. And works out pretty well here. And for the larger areas of shadow, I'm wetting the paper first and then putting it in, especially the shadow being cast from the big bulb area, because that's going to scatter the light the further you get away from the object, and it's like more dimensional. But then the sprouts that are kind of laying on the table, and there's not so much space between the paper that it's laying on and the object itself, they're going to have crisper, more tight shadows. So I don't need to wet the paper when I'm going in and around the little sprouts there in the center. So I think this would be pretty just to do pen and ink and just do the shadow, I think, even if you didn't want to add any color to the rest of the picture. But I think it's really fun to try different mediums, to try different techniques, work all that out in your sketchbook, because I feel like your sketchbook gives you a brand new chance every single day. You turn the page, you got a new chance, right? And yeah, I have started a new challenge group called Sketchbook. It's not even really a group. It's just called Sketchbook Floozy. And if you have sketchbooks you want to use up, you can check that out. I have a blog post on it. I have it on my Instagram account. You can find all the information either of those places. You can find it on my YouTube channel, community tab. I just want a way to help encourage people to use their sketchbooks more. And you can obviously use any of your the Lessons and Critique Club in your sketchbook, and you can, there's over 100 there. So if you feel like you need a little bit more instruction than just a time lapse or just a reference photo and a finished artwork, if you want some nitty gritty, you want to try different media and experiment that way, Critique Club is a really good place to do that because there's tons and tons of tutorials using all kinds of different medias. So you'll find something that will pique your interest, and you'll learn something new about a different medium, which is a lot of fun. So I'm starting off with this. I'm using the meadow green with some sun yellow to make this kind of spring chartreusey color, and I'm painting in the brighter colors of the sprouts here. And you can layer up on that, so do more than you think you need, because you can layer over. It's not going to like cause a problem if you want to go in with the darker greens on top. You can actually just do all of them if you want to. And I feel like that gives you a really nice glow and freshness to the plant. And then I'm mixing up a little bit more of a darker green, and I'm going in and adding some of the more shaded areas, some of the more bright greens. It's funny because like when this was in the fridge, everything was that really light yellow green, but when I put it in a cup of water on the windowsill, it like turned bright green like the next day. It was so cool to see the chlorophyll just kind of pop in the plant. And I'm wondering, because there's 3 distinct shoots of or bundles of shoots or sprouts coming out of the onion, I'm wondering if I separate that, if I can separate it and plant it, and it will make 3 onion plants, or what. That's what I'm gonna do now that the stalks have gone so long. I think I'm gonna try that. I hope they grow. I don't know. I don't have the best luck with stuff growing unless it's in my refrigerator. Apparently, then stuff grows all the time. But I'm really hoping that I could grow some onions, because I love to have onions. And I'm kind of wondering if like green onions are just like the shoots. Like, would these be like green onions? Could I like chop them up and throw them on baked potatoes or something? I don't know. I don't know if they're different like plants or if they're just different stages of the plants. Now, a lot of times when I'm working in my sketchbook, I will get my head right over it so that I don't have the distortion, so I can see things a lot more clearly. So every time you see my head poke in there, it's because I'm trying to get a closer look that's not distorted. The products in the line and wash set here are all very liftable, except for those 3 bright ink tints pans. You can scrub them up. You can scrub the Graphitint and the pastel paints. And probably, I don't know if there's tinted charcoal in this set or not. I'd really have to go back and look at the package. But I found that I was able to scrub up the colors like that I used in the greens, probably because I mixed them, so they would have had at least some Graphitint in them, which is a little bit more liftable. Also has a really nice granulation. The colors are gorgeous. There is a red, yellow, and blue primary, so you can do some good mixing there. But I just love the oddball colors that are in there. This set was designed by Jedediah Dore, or Dore. I actually taught with him in New York for Derwent last year. He put the set together because he's an urban sketcher. So I'm really excited to take this out and do some urban sketching with it, because I think that would be fun, using a limited palette and having the pens right there. I think it's going to be a really kind of fun challenge to do. So yeah, just keep layering up your colors until you're happy with it, until you feel like you've got a good variety of values there. Now, something with a Graphitint, because it's got that graphite in it, the values can get kind of muted when it dries because it reflects the light, and then you can't really see the dark shadows. So that's something you want to kind of think about when you're using graphite or a graphite included product. So I'm going in with some wax-based color pencils, and I am adding some highlights. I'm adding some boosts of color as needed. I'm adding the texture of the shininess on the onion skin there. And I'm using just a variety of wax-based pencils. I have in the rack behind me, you've probably seen it if you've ever watched my critique club. If you've ever watched my Sat Chats, I have that big box of colored pencils behind me. They're all wax-based pencils. There's a variety of brands. There's Prismacolor, Arteza, Holbein, Brutfuner, Mark Art, Marco Tribute. There's all kinds of like pencils that have fully colored barrels, and they're assorted by like color groups, and I use those for just touching stuff up. They work really well for touching up watercolor paintings and illustrations. So so I just kind of grab a few that are going to work, but any brand is going to be fine for this. Wax base is a little bit more opaque, so that's why I like to use it for these final stages, because it will stand out when sometimes other things don't really stand out. And yeah, just kind of touch things up as needed, and you can sharpen up edges with your pens if you find that you lost a lot of your line work and you want to bring it back, or you need an outline brought back. You can go back in with your pens. Just make sure your paper is completely dry, and don't put too much colored pencil down if you think you're going to go back in with the pens, because the colored pencil will resist the pens and it can almost clog the nibs a little bit. So I would just go easy with the colored pencil if you think you're going to go back in with pens like I am here. In fact, you could paint the picture in watercolor first, or in your colored media there first, and then do your lining afterwards. I do that a lot, especially with markers, because I'm kind of drawing as I go. But that pretty much does it. I did decide I needed a little bit more punch on the roots, so I went in with a white gel pen. But, you know, because I didn't want to reserve the whites, I didn't feel like it. But of course, you can follow up in any manner that you like to finish off your picture. And there you have it. I want to thank you so much for watching this video today. Check out Critique Club if you'd like a real-time version of this. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye!